What's going on, everybody? So today I want to talk about Diablo Immortal and purely dive into it from a revenue standpoint and from a YouTube web search standpoint. Where is the game now? I know I've done a couple videos on why I think the Diablo Immortal is, in terms of player base, dying out. However, I feel like as of now, or as of the last couple of weeks, it's really stabilized. And I actually think that based on these numbers, the game, I didn't think it was ever going to die. The term dying in my eyes was, okay, you have a large amount of player base and it's died off from that point up until a stabilization point, and I feel like we've reached that point. Now, I don't think the game will ever die up until maybe D4 comes out, but even then, I think that there'll still be a large audience for this game because of the mobile aspect versus the PC heavy grind aspect. But with all that being said, I want to talk about this post. So I saw this post on Reddit, Diablo Immortal's latest revenue, 300 million, and this post and this website actually breaks it down for us. Now, I want to come back here and look at some of the comments, but this right here, Diablo Immortal has now earned Blizzard and NetEase $300 million. Now, what's interesting about this is I'm not sure how this is split. Like, I don't know if Blizzard's getting like a 50-50 split. I don't know if it's like an 80-20 split. I have no idea how the company between, or the contract between Blizzard and NetEase works, because NetEase is a Chinese-based company, Blizzard's an American-based company, and well, Blizzard owns the Diablo IP, but we believe that NetEase is controlling a lot of how Diablo Immortal was implemented, meaning Diablo is generally this heavy grind, no cap, no pay to win type game, and then you have it in mobile, and I believe, or at least most people think, that NetEase kind of took that IP, took the Diablo base, and then made sort of a mobile game out of it. So kind of like how a lot of the other mobile games work. So based on that, I'm not sure how much is owed to Blizzard. I don't know how much is owed to NetEase, but right here, this is a very interesting graph. It basically shows the revenue per day as of the initial launch, which was June 1st. It wasn't quite June 1st. June 1st was like an early launch for those of you who were at the time. It launched on mobile before it launched on PC. And because of that, most people didn't play till June 2nd, which is why you see a large amount of transactions on June 2nd, but barely any on June 1st. And you can see that at peak, around launch, it was about a little bit higher than 2 million every day, and then it sharply dropped off and then jumped up again once the new battle pass started early July. So right here, you can see the general graph, and it's kind of stabilized. It's still dropping, and I expect it to still drop a little bit more and then stabilize a little bit further down. But this drop point, you can see, is roughly about $500,000, maybe about $600,000 a day for Diablo Immortal. For China, you could see the peak is double, and the regular daily revenue is also double. And it actually peaked and stayed at its peak for a decent amount of time, for about half a month before it started to drop down, versus, June, where it started to drop down pretty rapidly for the Americas, or at least for the rest of the world. I say America, but to be fair, it's a lot of different countries contributing to this, whereas China is literally on its own. How crazy is this, that you have over, I think it's 60 countries? Yeah, 60 countries can't compare, not even close to half of what China can do. This is why we say China is such a massive market, and before you ever judge a mobile game, you really have to wait until it releases in the Asian markets, because it is so incredibly accepted, normalized, and popular in those countries. Now, what does this mean? How does this compare? So I will say this is pretty absurd numbers for a mobile game. If you compare it to some of the higher tiered mobile games, it's not going to compare. You have a lot of Japanese and Chinese, pure Chinese and Japanese based games that are earning such massive numbers. If you compare it to like Raid Shadow Legends, for example, this is actually, it stands up. I would say it's not bad at all in terms of earning several $100,000 a day. And if you compare it to some other games out there that are more recently released that I know of, like Infinite Magic, Great Awakening, Chaos Era, those are gacha games. Tower of Fantasy is another one that came out. I believe Tower of Fantasy is kind of the similar type of game that you're going to see. That game is earning $9 million a month, I believe, at this point. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Or maybe it was, yeah, I believe it's $9 million last month they earned, which is probably less, or a lot less than Diablo Immortal. And Tower Fantasy was this massive, anime-based MMORPG, and Diablo Immortal is just still sticking through after 5 months of launch, right? So this is actually a very, very promising number. And with this, I could see that this game will go on for easily another year up until D4 comes out and maybe Blizzard reprioritizes. The only thing I would say is, although they made 300 million, back to my initial question is, I don't know how much goes to Blizzard. I don't know how much goes to NetEase. And that is a consideration because it may be less profitable for Blizzard than we may think. But this is a very, very good trend. After that, we have the Google Trend Search. Now, again, this is not like a super deep dive, but I do want to go over the revenue and the current state of the search terms. For those of you that don't know, this is Google Trends. The search terms kind of basically depict how often the game is being searched for at a larger basis. You can see on web search here, this is normally something that people die off very quickly and then never recover because not a lot of people go into Google and search for Diablo Immortal just to search for Diablo Immortal information. They go watch YouTube videos. And you can see here, they've just been constantly dropping. It is basically at its very lowest point here, at a 5 compared to its 100 earlier on launch. Now, I will say that these numbers, as I mentioned last time I talked about this, are a little bit inflated because people like Asmongold, people like Quinn69, people like Rich Campbell basically played the game and insulted it, and then brought a lot of people to play or watch, and then just quit the game, right? Like a couple weeks after. So that is something to know. And it's going to continue onwards, probably drop a little bit further. But YouTube search is something that I think is more important. I oftentimes look at YouTube search not only because I'm a content creator and I'm making videos, but on top of that, I think YouTube search kind of demonstrates a healthy community on who's interested in YouTube content for the game. And I think that people looking for YouTube content demonstrate an active community. And as soon as you have people that don't watch videos, you have less content creators, and then you have a less of a game community overall. And I think that that's why content creators generally keep the game alive. But you can see here it peaked way early on, and it's been dropping pretty much ever since. Up until recently, it's actually kind of bumped up a little bit. So it's very different than the web search here. It actually had some couple low points, and then it stabilized here at this 8 mark. And it feels like it's been stabilized there for quite some time. Obviously, there's less content to really cover in the game because there isn't any new content since day 1, really. There's a new set item, a new dungeon, and that's pretty much it, and some new legendary items, right? So as soon as you make videos on the new legendary items and things like that, there's less content to really cover. And I think a lot of people are kind of in that mindset, and a lot of people just watch for videos like this one where they're watching to see the state of the game, they're watching to see what kind of updates, what kind of things Blizzards are doing. And I would say that this is actually a promising look. It's always nice as a content creator and as a community to see your game kind of stabilize after the initial drop off. Because as soon as you see this, you're like, oh, dang, where are we headed, right? But then if you compare this to, like, let's just say New World. New World's always an amazing example to go to because, well, it's just a tragedy. Oh, I'm not sure actually if we're able to see, because it doesn't have a game term, but yeah, I'm not sure if we're able to see New World game. I'm not sure if well, we'll try Lost Ark here because I know that they have a video game category. But you can see here, you look at Lost Ark, they peaked way higher, and they had a similar drop, they had a spike up, and then they've been just downtrending ever since. And you can see Lost Ark at the moment is about twice as popular as Diablo Immortal, which is basically as, kind of conducive to, well, it was twice as popular when the game released. So, kind of similar trend there. And it's nice to see that our game is stabilizing much better than, something like Lost Ark. You'd see it's been just downtrending ever since, even though they've been putting out some updates, I imagine, to some of these spikes here. So always a nice, interesting graph to check out. And you can just see here some of the comments here, a few more months to see a revenue flatline. This is something that I think is very, very important. I think that's already reaching kind of there for the most part, but definitely an amazing revenue chart. And you can see here, it was 100 mil under 2 months. So they earned 200 mil over a little over 3 months, not particularly slowing down all that much. Most AAA games will never see this kind of income. This is why these types of games are made. And this is why I think this game will never die up until, maybe Blizzard reprioritize, like I mentioned. I mean, it's crazy. Like the amount of money that these games just bring in are just outclassing every other game, and this is why these games are made. This is why, for those of you that don't know or are not used to the mobile gaming atmosphere. And just some of the more comments here, but For the most part, guys, this is like a really nice trend to look at. And as someone who plans on making Diablo Immortal content until at least up until D4 for the most part, unless something else, changes or some crazy thing happens, this is always a nice thing to see because assuming that the game is still getting money, we're still going to get that 2-week update. We're still going to get some new content. I believe that the game is a very, very nice, has very, very good bones. And what I mean by that is that the gameplay is solid, it's smooth, it feels nice. The only issue I have with the game is that it's very, very close to like a mobile casual player base. And, there's not a way to progress your character. It's very, very pay to win centric. And there's not really anything to do right now because, well, I've finished everything, right? We're capped on Paragon levels, or at least we're time gated. And, everything else is kind of time gated as well. So regardless of the game being stale, we're still clearly getting a lot of money for the game. And it's still going to be very healthy going forward. And it looks for YouTube content. At least I will maintain my same audience here, just because that's just kind of how the YouTube search works. But hopefully this was interesting to you all. I know it was to me after checking out the revenue charts, because it's been a while. It's been about 2 months since I've really delved into the mobile data for Diablo Immortal. I did a little bit more research as well after I saw that, but pretty cool to check out. So hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like the video, sub to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.